Are you a social media manager or agency who juggles multiple channels for clients, but you aren't quite sure how to effectively strategize a multi-channel brand? Well, you've come to the right place, because today I've partnered with Cloud Campaign to show you exactly how to create a social media strategy for multi-channel brands. Hey, my name is Mil and I own a multi-six-figure social media agency, and I now help social media managers do the same. Now, before we dive in, make sure to grab the free template of a social media audit that I will be using and walking you through today. That'll drop right here. Now, let's dive straight in. Now, the first thing you need to create a multi-channel social media strategy is an audit. Now, while you should be conducting an audit for any social media strategy, this is even more important when you're managing multi-channel. Okay, so you want to conduct a thorough audit of their current channels. Which channels are they using? What's working for them? What isn't working for them? And really combing through to see, are they even on the right platforms? Is it even paying off for them, or should they be switching to another platform? Which platform is giving them the highest return? All of these things you're gonna find in an audit to see, okay, we need to update this, we need to update that. And it gives a lot of low-hanging fruit with instant changes that a brand or a client can make. So let's take a look at the social media audit template provided by Cloud Campaign that really is gonna make your life so much easier. So this is what the audit template looks like that you can download inside of this video, completely free. Well, here it's gonna dive into your social media goals, short-term and long-term goals, how you measure your current efforts. And this is really for you to ask the client. But from there on, there's a checklist, again, for multi-channel, because every single channel is different when it comes to auditing. So this is super helpful because, as you can see here, and this is optimized for 2024 because we know platforms change all the time. You can see here and check off the list and make notes while you're at it. So things that you will see here is, do you have a visual brand and a clear voice? Is your bio descriptive and interesting? Is it clear what followers can expect? Do you have a contact button set up? And also with contact button, it's like, do you have a up-to-date email, for example, right? A lot of people don't have up-to-date information and you're missing out on a lot of low-hanging fruit there. So here, all of these things you can go through. And again, this is for every platform, Facebook, LinkedIn, because every platform is completely different. So you need to audit it specifically to the platform. So this checklist will really, really help you here. So I highly recommend you to go through this and do a deep dive on what your client has been doing with either a previous social media manager, maybe they've been doing it themselves, but that gives you a better insights on what's going on currently before you can actually create a complete strategy. So make sure you download the social media audit template right here so that you can get started on this multi-channel social media strategy with me. The second thing you need to create a social media strategy for multi-channel brands is to pick your battles. Now, the reason why we did a full-on audit that goes in depth into each channel for a brand is to find out where their lowest hanging fruit is, their biggest return, right? And it's very common to reach different audiences on different platforms. So of course, a brand may want to be on every single platform, but A, their budget may not allow this, and B, you don't necessarily always need to be on every single platform, right? And so if you're doing multi-channel, you need to find out and advise the client on, these are the platforms I recommend for you, and here's why. Because I found that you're getting the most return from LinkedIn, or you're seeing the best results on Instagram right now. So for example, if your client is a career coach, their audience is going to look different on different platforms. If they're on Instagram, they're likely there to build a community and to drive a lot of awareness, as well as find clients or have clients find them. But then if you look at LinkedIn, they probably have a lot of low-hanging fruit there on people that they can already convert, because audiences on LinkedIn are actively looking for a job, right? So they will be in a different buyer's decision process than someone on Instagram that may want to be entertained and, yes, may buy and is looking at different services, but it's not a direct correlation the way LinkedIn has, right? So you need to find out for the client, hey, these are the platforms we're going to attack or are going to attack first. Especially if someone is completely from scratch, I would never recommend jumping in into all platforms all at once, but maybe picking one or two and really finding what works before expanding and saying, okay, now we can take on more because we know what resonates. We know how to approach your strategy. So let's expand and reach more people. Now that you've picked your poison, it's time to start sketching a skeleton to create a social media strategy for multi-channel brands. Now, what does this look like? The thing about multi-channel social media strategies is that you don't need to start every channel from scratch. Right? So it's not that you have to create a strategy completely from A to Z for Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. They're gonna have a lot of things that are gonna overlap, and you simply need to optimize the strategy for each platform so that you can see the best results. So I'm gonna show you what that looks like and how I like to do this. So here you can see where our clients mostly, especially creators, have long form content, meaning they have a video podcast, an audio podcast, a blog, or a YouTube channel. Now, in those cases, you will always start with long form content first. If your client doesn't have long form content, this wouldn't be the case. But if they do, then that is your starting point, because it should always start with long form content at the top so that you can refine the strategy from there going into each channel. So here you can see that as well. If there's a blog, a podcast, these are low-hanging fruit and opportunities here. But YouTube is, for this specific client, really their center focused. It's their biggest platform. They see the highest return there. So from there on, what we focused on, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. But you can see here the other platform and how it would make sense to take that long form and start building out even more channels. So here where you have the long form content is the YouTube channel, lives that are being done on YouTube, Instagram, and long form content that is inside the membership of this client. So from there on, these will turn into Instagram Reels, they will turn into YouTube Shorts, Facebook Reels, and from there on, video can be turned into text, into infographics, into all types of things, but you always have content to work from. And outside of that core foundation, you can then say, I'm gonna start implementing some Instagram trends that are specific to the platform. I'm gonna do more photos on Facebook because photos still perform very well on Facebook. And so you're gonna pick your battles and sketch a skeleton like I did here to see, okay, how can we make the most out of the content that is there, right? And again, if this is not the case and you don't have long form content, you will be working from the content pillars and strategy there to see, okay, what assets do we need and how can we make it as easy as possible for the client? And really, in all cases, it comes down to video. Hopping on a call with your client to record video, having them conduct an Instagram live once a month so that you have enough content to work from, even if it's just transcribing that entire live into carousel posts, tweets, infographics, you name it. So now that you've picked your channels and know what you're focusing on for the client, you can start working and crafting the overarching content strategy, right? One of the most important and fun parts of a social media strategy. So here's what that looks like. And I will say, like, if you've noticed, I've not talked in this strategy about target audience, how to reach, your ideal client, who they are, and what they're into. I'm not covering that in this video. If you do want to learn that, then after this video, make sure you check out a real example of a social media strategy where I walk you through it from A to Z. So if we're looking at content strategy specifically and creating that overarching strategy, I'm going to show you a real example here where I like to break this up into 4 or 3 categories: top of funnel, middle funnel, and bottom of funnel. You need all 3 and you will create more of a certain format depending on your client's goals, right? If your client has a large audience and they need to sell something to them, then you will be creating more bottom of funnel content, but you will lead into that with middle funnel content. You're not constantly always selling to your audience. And so in here, I will describe what that looks like and what type of content falls under each category based on this specific client. Now, a lead magnet I mentioned here because it is very important. If you want to get your client results, leads, and drive them into the funnel, you need to start building an email list from their audience. And the best way to do this is by having a lead magnet. So that's why I add that in here into the overarching content strategy. Now, these are just categories, right? So from there on, you want to come up with content pillars, topics that align with your clients and their brand and things they need to cover in their strategy. So here I've broken this up into 4 different main content pillars and what type of content falls under that for this client. And again, this will vary how much frequency you use from each pillar depending on the goals, what you're covering that week and month, right? But this gives an evergreen, overarching idea to the client on, hey, this is what we're focusing on. These are the areas that we find important for you to talk on in your marketing to reach your goals, right? And on top of that, doing research to actually show them, look, this is the type of content we see a lot of in your specific industry that would perform, right? First of all, you can see that it would perform and what a lot of people talk about. So the research part here gives that social proof to them, like, hey, this is what we found when searching in your industry and things like that. So from there on, once you create a content strategy, you can start mapping their actual calendar, which we do first inside of a task management software called ClickUp. And from there on, we will schedule it inside of Cloud Campaign, because now you have everything you need that you can schedule it and be hands off. But for documentation purposes, for our team and the client's sake, we have it stored inside of ClickUp before we schedule that out inside of Cloud Campaign. Cloud Campaign is the perfect social media management software for agencies because it's created specifically for agencies and people that have multiple clients rather than a brand or a solopreneur that's simply trying to schedule content for themselves. So check out Cloud Campaign. They have a free 14-day free trial that you should check out. And if you like them, make sure to use my code MILU15 so that you can save some money there. So now the final piece of your strategy, now that you have it all together and have clarity for you and your client on what you're focusing on, it's time to start scheduling this content out for them, right? And do this strategically. Now, especially with multi-channel strategies and brands, you need to use a software like Cloud Campaign so that you are not on a hamster wheel publishing and making sure everything goes to multi-channels. Depending on how many channels they have, it can be really overwhelming. So if you look here inside of Cloud Campaign, one of the best parts about Cloud Campaign for multi-channels is that they actually use something called content tags. Now you can label and tag all of your content so that you can now use those categories that you added in the social media strategy, the content pillars, and you can see at the end of the month what content actually performed best based on their tags. So here you can see I can search tags, I can add and manage tags. For myself, I have evergreen content, Instagram, social media strategy, and thought leadership. You can label these however you want, whatever makes sense for you. But the great part is that this way you can actually see what's performing best and show the client as well. Okay, so the best part about Cloud Campaign as you're adding your clients' accounts in there is that they have access to all of these platforms. So as you schedule content in the calendar, you can say, I want this post to go to Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube even. And what you will do is you will simply adjust or edit the copy for each platform and using the same asset, for example. But the great thing is that you can schedule to all of these and it's so easy because there's no extra effort there. Because remember, you don't have to create the strategy from scratch on each channel. You simply have to optimize it accordingly. And sometimes that may look like using a video on one platform and a photo on another, but you can still use the same copy. Or sometimes you might use a photo on all platforms and make little tweaks to the captions with hashtags and you name it. So make sure you check out Cloud Campaign to make executing a multi-channel strategy so much easier. And even you could upsell your client into adding more channels to their management package with you so that you can easily do that for them and make more money and they will see better results. So this wraps up the social media strategy for multi-channel brands. Make sure you've grabbed free social media audit template that I've linked in this video so that you can rewatch this video and start creating a social media strategy for multi-channel brands and clients and get familiar with all the things that I listed in this video. Now, if you found this helpful, make sure you subscribe because I post weekly videos and I look forward to seeing you next week.